day friends, I welcome you in this lecture. If you recollect, in our previous lectures on return and risk, we talked about what is return, what is risk, and how do we calculate return. This we discussed. In my immediate previous lecture, I talked about risk, I talked about sources of risk. If I remind you that what is risk? When you make an investment with the expected return. This investment of yours will give you certain return. But there can be some variation in what you expect and what you actually get. So this variation, this difference of expected return, the actual return is what risk is. And whenever we make investment, the basic motivating factor for any investment is the return which you expect to get. But this return which you are expecting, the actual return differs from it, or it may differ from it. So this element is called risk. And risk is basically the uncertainty, and the whole world is full of uncertainties. If you differentiate between, if you recapitulate that last time we also talked about risk and uncertainty in detail. Just in brief, I would say that risk is something which can be measured where the probability can be assigned, but uncertainty is something where probability cannot be assigned. So we will be in this lecture talking of how we calculate risk. And as I was just saying, that risk and return go hand in hand. That is, wherever there is a return, wherever there is an investment, you expect certain return, but there is an associated risk with it. And higher is the risk, higher is the expected return which you expect from it. So in today's lecture, I'll be focusing on how do we measure risk. So broadly speaking, I would say there are two methods of measuring risk. One is called range. What is the range? It is the difference between the highest and the lowest possible return in case of an investment. Higher the range, greater will be the dispersion, and hence higher the risk. What it means is that if I am making an investment in the equity, I expect that my investment will give me from 10 to 20% return. So this range of 10 to 20% is the range. That is, the range is 10%. Minimal is 10% and maximum return is 20%. Minimum return is 10%, maximum return is 20%. So this range is 10%. So this is called, the risk is of 10%. So range is 10%. If you are making in a real estate investment, supposing you are presuming that the return can be 5 to 6%, it can be 20%. So the range is 15%, right? So this higher is the range, higher is the risk, right? So this is one method of measuring the risk, but it is not being considered as a very scientific method. It is a raw method, it is a broad method of measuring risk, which gives you an idea about the expected risk associated with the investment. The other method, which is more scientific, is called standard deviation, or we call it variance. What is variance, or what is standard deviation? It measures the degree of spread of possible returns around the expected returns. It means there is a spread between the expected return and the possible returns which you are expecting. So this spread is called standard deviation. It is the most popular and commonly used measure to calculate the total risk of the security. In this lecture, by and large, my focus will be on calculation of standard deviation and on calculation of that how do you calculate risk by using this method of any investment which you are going to make or which you want to make. So how do you calculate standard deviation? Standard deviation is equal to, there is a formula which you use while calculating the standard deviation, which is a measure of risk, that is square root of summation of I to n. I is equal to 1 to n. Means if there are number of observations, from first observation up to the n number of observation. If there are 10 observation, I will say n will be the 10. Means from first to 10 observation, all the observation will make summation of it, right? Summation of I is equal to 1 to up to 9n multiplied by r minus r bar. R bar is the expected return, the average return, right? R minus r bar whole square divided by n, right? So I is equal to ith return, r is equal to mean return, which we also call it average return, n is number of observation, right? So while calculating standard deviation, this formula is being used. By following this formula, you can calculate the quantum of risk associated with it. As I was saying, that standard deviation is the most popular method of calculating the risk, of measuring the risk, right? So in case if there is a probability which is being assigned to the distribution of the returns, in that case standard deviation is equal to square root of summation of I to n, I is equal to 1 to n, P1 means Pi, you can say Pi is the probability, into Ri minus R bar whole square, right? So it is equal to, this is also when this formula is being used when there is a probability assigned of the return, right? Or variance, if you are being asked to calculate the variance, in that case we will not do the square root or we will not do the under root. Summation of, I will simply say summation of I is equal to 1 to n, P1 means probability, into Ri minus R bar. R bar is nothing but the average return whole square, right? So in this way you can calculate the variance. I will be explaining the variance separately. Now let me take one example. By the example we'll calculate how do we calculate the risk and the return, right? So calculate the total risk of the security M, for which the past returns are given below. You have invested in a security and you are given that 10-year return, that expected return. I am saying that from first to 10 years, these are the number of years, the 10 years are given, and what is the expected return of this investment in different years, that is we call it RI in percentage term. So in first year 20%, second year 24%, third year 30%, fourth year 19%, and so on so forth up to the 10th year up to 25%. In 10th year 25%. Means what you are being given is 10 years expected return is given in terms of percentage. On the basis of this, you are being asked to calculate the risk of the investment. So very first thing is you will calculate the expected return, because for calculating standard deviation you will be requiring Ri minus R bar and the whole square. So for this, first step is you calculate the average return. How do you calculate average return? Simply you make the summation of the return which you are expecting. In the first year 20%, the second year 24%, third year 30%, fourth year 19%, fifth year 28%, and so on so forth up to the 10 year, right? So the sum total of this 10 years return is 250. And since the number of observation are 10, means the number of years are 10, so I would simply say 250 divided by 10, that gives you 25%. Means expected return of this investment over a period of time of the investment is 25%. Right? So expected return comes to be the 25%. For calculating standard deviation, for calculating risk, then the second step is Ri minus R bar. R bar is nothing but expected return. So I will say 20 minus 25, right? So minus 5, 24 minus 25 minus 1, 30 minus 25 5, 19 minus 25 6, right? So 28 minus 25 3, right? So 16 minus 25 minus 9. So what you are noticing here is that simply we are the second step is Ri minus R bar, or expected return, that is return in a particular year minus expected return, right? And finally then in the last column we'll calculate Ri minus R bar whole square, that is Ri minus R bar we have already calculated. R in the ith year we have Ri minus R bar we have already calculated. So we'll simply square it, right? Whole square of it. So 5 into 5, 25, minus 1 into minus 1, 1, 5 into 5, 25, minus 6 into minus 6, 36, right. So in this way you can calculate Ri minus R bar whole square, right. So the sum total of it is called is the 238. Then, as you know, the formula of standard deviation is equal to the square root of summation of from first I is equal to 1 to up to n, right, into Ri minus R bar whole square divided by n, right. So we have already calculated Ri minus R bar whole square, that comes to 238. So 238, putting the figures in formula, 238 divided by 10, 10 is the number of years, n is 10 because the 10 years observation is given. So 238 divided by 10, square root of it, it comes to be 4.88%. So standard deviation in this case is 4.88%. This is our answer, right. So risk associated with this in terms of the standard deviation is 4.88. Higher is the standard deviation, higher is the risk. Let me take you one more example. Let's discuss one more example. So Mr. Rahul is evaluating two investment options, security X and security Y. Both the securities have equal returns, but the probability of occurring these returns in two securities are different. The return and probabilities of the two securities are given below, right. So friends, what is given in the question is that you are being given the return of the security X and security Y. Mr. Rahul want to invest in two securities, right, the X security and the Y security, and the different probabilities of getting these returns is also being given. That is, in security X, the probability of getting return of 15% is 20%, that is 0.2. Probability of getting 18% is 0.1, that is 10%. Probability of getting 20% is 0.5, that is 50% probability is that there will be 20% return of this investment of security investment in security X, right. So you are being given the different probabilities and you are being given the different returns which you are expecting. Similarly, you are being given the probability of these returns of security Y. Find the expected return and risk of the securities, right. So in this example, I'll be solving for you only the return and the risk of the one security, and in a very similar manner you can exactly in the same manner, the way you will calculate for security X, you will able to calculate security Y. So for the paucity of time, I will be showing you only one security, return and risk of one security. Automatically this in a very similar manner you can calculate for the other security. Let's calculate for say security X. So as in the question, in our example, the return is being given 15%, 18%, 20%, 26%. These are the returns, and probability, which we call it Ri, and the probability of these returns is also being given. I am calculating for you only for security X. So probability is 0.2, 15%, 0.1, 18%, like this. The way it is given in the example. Similarly, I have noted down the different probabilities of different returns, right. So now in order to calculate the standard deviation, means in order to calculate standard deviation, first of all, the first step is we have to calculate average return. So average return is nothing but the summation of return into probability. So Ri, Pi, you make summation of it, you will get average return. So 15% multiplied by 0.2 comes to be 3%, 18% multiplied by 0.1, it comes to be 1.8%, 20% multiplied by 0.5 comes to be 10%, 26% multiplied by 0.2 comes to be 5.2%. So Ri, Pi, make summation of it, that comes to be 20%. So 3 plus 1.8 plus 10 plus 5.2, it comes to be 20%. So it means the average return of investment in security X is 20%. Because we are not sure whether we will get 20% return or we will get 15% return. The probability of different expected return is given, right. So we multiplied returns with the probability and make summation of it, it gives you average return. Now with this average return we have to calculate risk. In a previous example also, the similar manner will calculate the risk, right. So here the probability is being given, so we have multiplied probability with the return. So for calculating risk, the first step is Ri minus R bar, right? So Ri minus R bar means return is 15%, average return is 20%, right? 15% minus 20% minus 5, 18% minus 20%, minus 2%, 20% minus 20%, 0, 20% minus 26%, it comes to be 6%, right? So, sorry, 26% minus 20%, right? Ri minus R bar, that is 26% minus 20%, 20% minus 20%, right? So, it comes to be Ri minus R bar. So, minus 5, minus 2, 0, 6. Then you make whole square of it. You make square of it, minus 5 into minus 5, 25, minus 2 into minus 2, 4, 0 into 0, 0, 6 into 6, 36, right? So, this is basically Ri minus R average return whole square, right? So, this now you multiply this with the probability, right? The last step is you multiply Ri minus R bar whole square with the probability assigned with this return. So, 25 multiplied by the probability, that is 0.2. So, it comes to be 5. 4 multiplied by 0.1 is equal to 0.4. 0 multiplied by 0.5, 0, right? So, 36 multiplied by 0.2, 7.2, right? And you make summation of it. So, because we have to apply the formula, for applying the formula, we have to make summation of probability Pi multiplied by Ri minus R bar whole square, right? So, which we have already calculated. So, the summation of it is 12.6%, right? So, square root of 12.6% is the standard deviation. That comes to be 3.55. So, in this case, our answer is, for in this example, our risk is standard deviation of 3.55. Let's take one more example, right? Mr. Kiran purchased a share at a price of rupees 100. Now, it expected year, means after a year, end price with relevant probabilities and expected year-end dividend are given below. That is, probability is assigned 0.5, 0.3, 0.2, that is 50%, 30%, 20%. There are 3 different probabilities. Share price at the end of the year. You have Mr. Kiran has purchased the share of rupees 100. Share price being 115 at the end of the year, the probability of this is 0.5, that is 50%. Share price will be 120 rupees after a year, probability is 30%. Share price will be 125 rupees after a year, probability is 20%. And at the end of the year, that there is a 50% probability that you will be getting 2 rupees dividend. There is a 30% probability you will be getting 5 rupees dividend. You means Mr. Kiran. And there is a 20% probability that Mr. Kiran will get 4 rupees dividend, right? So, we have to find out the expected return and variability of the return of the share. Variability of the return means basically we have to calculate the risk, because risk is being measured by variability. So, how we calculate? Friends, first step is we have to calculate how much return Mr. Kiran is expected to get with different probabilities, right? So, your D1 I have used for dividend, because there is a 50% probability that 2 rupees dividend, 30% probability 5 rupees dividend, 20% probability that 4 rupees dividend. It is given in our example, right? So, P1 is the means price at the end of the year, 115, 120, 125. These are different as per the probabilities. Investment is P0 is equal to initial investment. You have invested rupees 100. So, what is the total gain? Like, I am taking one probability and then I will show you with the other, that 50% probability that price at the end of the year will be 115 and there will be 2 rupees dividend. So, what is the total gain? 17 rupees, right? That is D1 dividend plus P1 minus P0. P1 means nothing but price at the end of the year. P0 is price initial price at the 0 period, means 0 period initially, right? So, 115 minus 100, that comes to be 15 rupees is the capital gain, price escalation, plus 2 rupees is the dividend. So, total gain is 17 rupees. And what is your percentage term return? Because the initial investment is of 100 rupees. So, 17 rupees is the total return which will be expected to get, 50% probability of it. right? So 17% in each, right? 17 divided by 100, that comes to be 17%. Similarly, 30% probability of 5 rupees dividend and 120 rupees price at the end of the year. So total gain is 25 rupees. 25 rupees is the return, means 100 rupees is the investment, so 25%. Similarly, you can calculate for the third probability, that is 20% probability, 4 rupees, and the share price is 125. So total gain is 29. So it comes to be return be 29%, right? So with this expected return and the assigned probability of these expected return, you multiply with the probability, RI, PI, right? So 17 multiplied by 0.5, 25 multiplied by 0.3, and 29 multiplied by 0.2, that comes to be RI, PI. So 8.5, 7.5, 5.8, right? You make summation of it, it will be your expected return. So friends, you have seen that in this manner, you will able to calculate what is the expected return which you will be getting by making an investment of rupees 100, and at the end of the year you are expected to get 21.8% return. That you are expecting that this return of your 100 rupees, your investment of 100 rupees will give you 21.8% return. What we have done, I am recapitulating that the different probabilities is given of the price which you are expecting that will be there at the end of the year, and you are also being given that what is the expected dividend which the company is going to give at the end of the year, right? So first step is you find out the return which you are expected to get, right? So you may get 17 rupees return, you may get 25 rupees return, you may get 29 rupees return. Means what is return? Return is nothing but the change in the share price during the year plus the dividend income which you get, right? So this is the return, and if this return is divided by the share price at which you have invested, or I will not say share price, I can use even the word any investment which you have made, investment of 100 rupees, right? So return is 17%. So in this way, the different returns are being given different probabilities. You multiply that and make summation of it, that will give you expected return. Now the second step is we have to calculate the risk. Up till now, we have calculated the return which we are expected to get by this investment. Now how we will calculate the risk? Risk is being calculated by standard deviation. In my previous examples also I have shown you how you calculate risk. So let's calculate the risk element in this investment. So 17 rupees, 25 rupees, 29 rupees, right? It is the return which you are getting. Probability, you multiply it with the probability, you get 8.1, 7.5, 5.8. Means the probability of getting 17 rupees return is 50%, right? So you multiplied 17 with the 50%, 0.50, you get 8.5. Similarly, you 25 multiplied by the probability which you are expecting, 25 multiplied by 0.2, that comes to 7.5. 29 multiplied by 0.3, that comes to be 5.8, right? So that is, you have calculated this. Now the second step is, the other step of calculating the risk is RI minus R bar, right? R bar is nothing but average return. So what is your average return? 21.8%. So what is your return? Average return 17 minus 21.8%. That comes to be minus 4.8%, right? So 25 minus 21.8%, that comes to be 3.2%. 29 minus 21.8%, that comes to be 7.2%, right? So for all these three expected return, you multiply it, you make the whole square of it. So 4.8 minus 4.8 multiplied by minus 4.8, it comes to be 23.4. 3.2 multiplied by 3.2, it comes to be 10.24. 7.2 multiplied by 7.2, it comes to be 51.84, right? So this is Ri minus R bar. Now this Ri minus R bar whole square will be multiplied with the probability in order to calculate risk, right? So this multiplied by 23.04 multiplied by the probability, that is 0.5, that you 11.52. In this manner, you can calculate with all three different probabilities and different Ri minus R bar whole square. That comes to be 3.072, 10.368. and make summation of it, that comes to be 24.96. That is, simply we have applied the formula of standard deviation, which is say square root of summation of I is equal to 1 to n. N means, n in our cases there are 3 observations, right. So, all these 3 from first to third observation we will make the summation of it. Pi means probability multiplied by Ri minus R bar whole square, right. And you have calculated, after finding out this, we will calculate square root. So, 24.96 square root of which is come 4.99, right. So, in this manner you can calculate the risk. So, friends, what we have done so far is, in this very lecture we have talked about basically how you calculate risk, right. So, risk, in the first example which I took, if you recollect, we were being given the 10 years expected return, right, and this 10-year returns are being given, the probability of getting this return is being given. So, you are being given how you will calculate, or simply, if I will not say probability, you will simply say 10 years return is being given, and what is the expected return out of it, right. So, this was the example which we took, right. So, in this case, simply first of all I have calculated average return 25%, and then for calculating risk I have said 20 minus 25 minus 5. In this way we have calculated Ri minus R bar whole square of it, and the square root of 238 divided by 10, because there are 10 years observation, and square root of is the risk element. So, thank you very much. In this lecture we have basically shown the calculation of risk, measurement of risk of any investment. Thank you.